glad to be back together and doing something a little bit different this time around. Not a true Bible study, but kind of a book discussion for us here, based on a book, C.S. Lewis's *The Great Divorce*. And I have to. Deb Harris isn't here, but she's the one who cajoled me into doing this kind of class, because I think in one of our previous Bible studies I had mentioned this book, made reference to this book, and so she went out and read it and then said, "You need to lead a class on this." So if blame Deb, okay, take it up with Deb. And I was, of course, all too happy to, because I absolutely love C.S. Lewis, and mentioned, I think at one time, but I'll share here, in seminary, one of my favorite classes, you have to take tons of different classes in the Masters of Divinity program, and you have to take a variety of theology classes, and I took, in one J term, which is kind of all of January and part of February, I took a class called Theology of C.S. Lewis. And so we had to read a whole ton, we read a lot of C.S. Lewis. So that was one of my favorite classes. I had already liked C.S. Lewis before that, and fell in love more so with his theology and his thinking for us in that moment. So I was very happy to be cajoled. Oh, come on in, Jim.
Okay, I'm here too late, but
No problem.
you just need to sit.
Yeah,
Come on over.
they just need to be a little separate, immunocompromised over. Yeah, that's the.
Yeah.
Come on over. So wonderful. There's coffee and some goodies over there if you want to grab some at any time.
Thank
But
you.
we're just getting started. So we won't be exploring scriptures too much. You might think of, as we talk about things, you might have a couple of passages of scriptures come to your mind. Jot those down and explore those and pray about those. We'll be mainly exploring the ideas, the theology that Lewis is trying to share or communicate through this book, through this novel for us here. But as we start always, we'll start in a moment of prayer. Wonderful and gracious God, thank you so much for this beautiful day. We thank you for everyone who's been able to gather here with us today, and those who will be with us at other weeks who aren't able to be here today. God, we pray that you will fill us with your Holy Spirit, that as we spend some time in discussion and thought and reflection of the work of C.S. Lewis, that your Spirit will speak to us as well, that we will be encouraged to think and to ponder and to be open to what you are doing, what you are wanting us to hear and to learn, that it might always help us to grow closer to you and closer to one another. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So as we begin, how familiar are all of you with C.S. Lewis?
Not at all.
John's not at all. Nope. Are you familiar with anything like the Chronicles of Narnia?
Well, the movies maybe.
Okay,
But
okay.
But other than that, no.
Because he wrote those.
Yeah, I know that.
All right. All right. Who else? Just how familiar are you with C.S. Lewis?
I read the Chronicles, but it was when the kids were little, so it's been like 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love C.S. Lewis.
Holly loves
I
C.S. Lewis.
especially like Mere Christianity.
So Mere Christianity is probably his most famous theological writing. It's an apologetic. It's a defense. It's an explanation of all of Christianity, as he calls it, Mere Christianity. But it's a wonderful thing. It could be a semester-long class for us in its entirety. Yeah. Who else is familiar with or not familiar with?
I love
I knew he was atheist, I knew he got married old, I think he was older in life, but she didn't live very long.
Right, yep,
His wife Joy, yeah.
yep, his
Little-
wife
little
Joy.
boy.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else familiar with?
I'm familiar, but I never really got into it. The first book or something that I bought and started to read, it just didn't hit me.
Okay.
And I'm here to find out what I really missed out on.
Okay. All right. So just to kind of bring us all up to speed on C.S. Lewis before we get into the book, just remind, C.S. Lewis is he was British. He was born in Ireland. And as Kathy mentioned, he grew up as part of the Irish church, but fell away from the church and was early in his academic
Which
career.
church did you say?
The Church of Ireland.
Which is basically a
An
Catholic.
Anglican,
Yeah.
but was
Well, I
in
forgot
Ireland.
about.
Yeah. So he was born in the late 1800s and grew up in Ireland. They moved to England. He served in World War I, and along with who would become, they weren't in the same company, but who would become an incredibly important friend for him was J.R.R. Tolkien. He became a professor of English and literature at Oxford University, and that's where he had his career. Later in his adulthood and academic career, he came back to Christianity, became a Christian, and became a member of the Anglican Church. He didn't really set out to be a theologian, but he was struck by, and I'm paraphrasing horribly. So Polly, if there's a fact or a detail I'm getting, but just there's a lot of details in here. But he never really set out to say, I want to be a theologian like Thomas Aquinas or Karl Barth or Niebuhr or some of these other really high-powered, PhD level. Although Lewis had a doctorate, I mean, he was a Oxford professor. He didn't want to be a theologian like a clergyman theologian, deep and heavy. He was a layperson. He was not an ordained minister. He just, as he came back in relationship with God and reclaimed his faith, it was just something so incredibly important to him that he wanted to be able to communicate that to people in more accessible ways than some of the theology that was being communicated at the time. Lewis also, as I said, he has served in World War I. He is British. He is surviving World War II. He survives that. He passes away in 1963, so he is also trying to. He is a critic of the Enlightenment. That's another word that you might want to. How familiar are with you the concept of the philosophy of the Enlightenment? Not at all. All right. So the Enlightenment is a long chunk of human philosophy and development that basically says, as we as human beings learn and understand more, we approach perfection, basically. We become more and more fully enlightened. We'll solve all of the world's and life's problems as we get to know more and more and more. As human knowledge expands, human perfection is achievable, basically, again, highly paraphrasing that. But the idea being, we can solve all the problems, we can make everything better through knowledge, through science, through art and philosophy. We can make everything better the smarter we get. The Enlightenment philosophy and direction falls apart in the early 1900s. And the death nail or bell of that is the nuclear bomb. All minds came and said, we have begun to understand one of the singular, most powerful and fundamental things of the universe, the atom itself, and we have torn that apart. And all we've done with our human knowledge is just gotten better at destroying ourselves. When we realized that we could destroy all life on our planet through our human knowledge, really was the end of the Enlightenment. Lewis is a critic of this, of the Enlightenment, as many thinkers are in that early time periods of the 1900s. I just share that because if you read other things in Lewis, other books of Lewis, and you'll hear it in here, you'll start to hear a lot of critiques of Enlightenment thinking that was still very prominent through, we still deal with Enlightenment thinking here through in 2026. But he's a profound critic of the Enlightenment, and he wants to present to people an understanding of God, of our faith, of Christianity, that is meaningful and accessible. Now, some of you, I heard Karen say, you might underline the word accessible and with a question mark. He was also an academic. He was an incredibly brilliant man, and a perfectionist of a writer, and really, but one of the ways that he wanted to be accessible was through the use of imagination, because that was how he came back to faith. Reading some fiction books written by someone who had become a mentor of him in life, he found himself when he was at a point of, he had actually been writing, anti-Christian, anti-faith, in his time, he was very critical of Christianity and of faith as well, that in that time he began reading some pieces of fiction and some catalogs and magazines that he found that was how, through those pieces of imagination, he found, that God, he described it, God got a crack into him and got it back into him, into his heart and his soul and his mind, and ultimately led him back to an active and meaningful faith. And so that's why Lewis writes both nonfiction pieces of theology and apologetics, like Mere Christianity, The Problem of Pain, The Weight of Glory, and others that are nonfiction, but he also writes a lot of fictional things that are very theological and have a lot about God and our faith within them. The most prominent and famous of them are the Chronicles of Narnia, which are an allegory of Christianity, and explore. If you read the Chronicles of Narnia, all 7 of those books, there's a lot of theology in them. Some of it more obvious than other parts and things, but it's very theological in them, and it was targeting younger adults and youth to have them start thinking through these imaginative pieces of work. He's written some other pieces of fiction, one of which being The Great Divorce, that we're going to take a look at here for us. And the general reason that he wrote The Great Divorce is that he had been reading some other things going on and seeing some other pieces of theology and fiction and trends within the world at the time that were really kind of, like I said, were Enlightenment. That the better we get as human beings, the closer we're going to get to God. You could almost think of Einstein's statement of, I want to tear the mask off the universe and see the face of God. As if we could look on the face of God as a peer, that we could comprehend what we were about to see. And Lewis is like, hold on. there's something, humanity is never going to attain the fullness of God. We are, that's not something we can get. And so that kind of got him thinking about how, let's talk about this, explore this separation between humanity and God, this great separation for it in a meaningful way. And that's kind of very generally his inspiration or impetus for going into this, to write this piece of literature for us to explore. So, any questions or comments on what I've shared so far about C.S. Lewis? No? Okay, good. So we'll talk about The Great Divorce. Now, I know some of you haven't had a chance to get the book yet. How many of you have read it before? Holly's read it before because she's got an older copy. I couldn't find my copy from seminary, but she's got a copy
It's pretty yellow.
I think Holly's got the. I didn't read this until the winter of 2004. I had read the Chronicles of Narnia and the Space Trilogy. He wrote science fiction. It was great. I didn't read this until I was in seminary, and I couldn't find my copy from seminary. It was I must have lent it out to somebody here at some point, and it didn't come back. I've also lent out a book of his called A Grief Observed, that I've had to buy like 15 times because it never comes back. So some of you have had a chance to read it. Some of you haven't, and hopefully you'll be able to get. You can find copies of this. I know you guys said
Listen to it on Libby.
you can rent it if you do Libby. It's an audio book there, and that would be free. I know John said he's getting it from the library. You can find a copy of The Great Divorce almost anywhere. It's pretty easy to find.
Do you have any copies that are for
I
sale?
don't have any copies that are for sale at this moment. I'm sorry.
Well, if you're going to the library, they do not have this edition, but they order it, and mine's waiting for me. In 2 days, they'll have it.
Okay,
If you're looking for it, you go to the library, they'll order it from their.
I'll see if I can find you a copy before Sunday.
Easy from
for you.
Amazon.
Mhm.
Yeah, true.
So for those who haven't read it, read the first part of this book yet, we're just to give you the brief synopsis of it. On the back of the title they say a timeless novel about a bus ride from hell to heaven. And the first part of the book is about him getting onto the bus. That that kind of sets the setting for us. The book opens up with Lewis in what he describes as a gray city, but is pretty clearly, shortly in the book identified as hell. And they get on a bus, and he and others get on a bus, and they go up. The bus takes off and flies, takes them to a place.
Bus part got that idea.
The magic school, yeah, very similar to the magic school bus.
Where were they departed to?
What?
Where was the bus departed to?
Where it was going?
Yes.
It was going up to the very foothills of the mountain of God. It doesn't quite go to heaven. And then the main portions of the story take place in interactions of people who have come from the gray city on the bus up to the foothills of heaven. And Lewis acts as the narrator. He's writing as himself in this. That's an important kind of thing to note here, is that he's writing about himself. He has put himself into this narrative. So he's acting as the narrator. So we see interactions of other people with some other people, some people from the gray city and some people who've come down from the mountain. And we see some interactions between them. And we also have some interactions of Lewis's character with someone who's come down from the mountain with him as well in this story. So I don't want to give away too many spoilers if you haven't read it, but you're going to have some things spoiled for you here. But for us, as we start our conversation here, for those who've had a chance to start to read it, what are your first impressions of the first few chapters of the book? I see faces like.
I was trying to figure it out. It's like
I know, I tell them, I go, I'm confused, you know, it was just, couldn't.
That's the kind of thing that sent me out here.
Right. So I asked that.
Started out in line, right? And some people got out of line.
And then they were happy, and then the bus was, because there was not enough room, and then there's too much room in the bus.
Yeah.
And it was like, wait a minute, but, you know, I don't know, I was trying to follow it, but, yeah. That's what struck me.
I wasn't quite sure where we were. You know,
Mhm.
now I got into the middle of it, so then there's more interaction. You know,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh, okay, I think I'm getting what's going on here.
Mhm.
But it took like half the book to get there. Yeah. Okay.
I was
All right.
with you on that too.
Yeah.
Who's read it all?
I did.
Okay, Holly's read it all.
I'm gonna do it again.
The very ending kind of gives you an idea of what, kind of clears a few things up for you as well. But yeah, so it's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
We get in this first part this sense that Lewis is just here in this very nondescript, as they said, just in that kind of what was the word? It was very strange. The lighting was weird. It was like it was almost going to be daybreak. In that very kind of murky light, but not fully light, not fully dark. That kind of that in between place, and he's just there. The book starts with, I seem to be standing in a busy queue by the side of a long, mean street. So he just appears of this line that's getting on the bus, and he's just kind of following the stream of people getting onto that bus. But in that, we get a description of the gray city. Who remembers anything that is described of the city itself? Not when they're leaving. Yeah, you can get some of it when it was leaving.
I just remember, wasn't it raining
It
or
was
something?
raining.
It
Yeah.
was just dismal and.
I was, well, kind of maybe fog, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
To me, it was like I'm picturing a pretty, smoggy, rainy, foggy day in London, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
kind of, that was that. Anything else strike you about in some of the chapters are short, but just while he's getting on the bus and in line, there's a lot of things that are being described about where they are.
And do houses, small tobacconists, organs from other people, so it's not a lot of people, and one standing in line.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The whole town seemed to be empty.
yeah. It's clearly a big. There's lots of houses and buildings, but it's very empty.
I gotta apologize, I read a summary of the book. Don't do that, it takes the fun out of reading.
Yeah.
But so I'm not gonna make many comments, because it'd be ahead of the thing, but I do have a question.
Mhm.
The narrator in this book is never named.
Mhm.
Do you think it's C.S. Lewis himself?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, because they make a special statement about the fact that the narrator of the whole book is never named. You don't know who to identify that person with.
Right. He's using the first person. I seem to be standing, so
Yeah.
he's putting himself into it. The very end of the book lets you know that.
Because I'm not gonna take anything away, because
Okay.
I got some opinions from reading the narrative now, and I wanna read the book.
Right. So in this gray, empty place, but there's people. He keeps bumping into people, and he doesn't name them. He kind of puts them on to, like the big man or bowler hat and, thing. But we keep getting some more descriptions of what this place is like. And just trying to see if, of any of those descriptions of either the physical place or the people jumped out at
I
anybody.
just remember the argument the one woman had with her husband,
Mhm.
and I can't remember why she had the argument, but then she kind of walks off and left, and
Mhm.
I don't know, I thought that, I don't know why that stood out in my mind, but then they left, and he was excited because there were 2 more spaces empty, and they could move up, because he was
Mhm.
worried he was gonna get on the bus, wasn't he,
He wasn't going to get on the bus. The
Bus,
bus
yeah.
seemed too small.
Yeah,
But by the time he gets to the bus, there's
It's
plenty of
more
room
than-
in it.
but I don't know, I just remember this argument, I can't remember that's why I need to read it again, what were they arguing about, but they left, the husband was trying to be, kind of like, it's okay, but I think she was like, no, we're leaving, and I don't remember.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
That was helpful, wasn't it?
No, but so there's lots of these little interactions like that. There's usually some kind of an argument or something. There's even a fight that erupts.
Yeah.
Someone gets shot on the bus. I think the narrator might even get shot on the bus, but then they're all fine again.
Yeah.
So you get the sense that this is not an ordinary place.
Yeah.
This is not, it's a supernatural place. Things are not, it might look like a place, it might look like dingy, grungy London, but it's not really. This is something other. But it's tangible. It's accessible. It's something that we could see and expect, that is commonplace. Waiting for the bus. Not so much here in Minocqua, but public transit in the 40s and 60s, 50s was more common, especially in Britain. So getting in line for the bus, the couples arguing and storming
So did
off.
she
People,
not go, was it about them going to, she didn't want to go
I
because?
believe so. I
Because
have
they
to.
didn't want to go to, did they know what they were?
No. There's
They're
no
just taking
talk
this
about. There is
bus.
no talk about heaven or hell
It's
or
just they're
where
just
the
getting-
bus is going.
Yeah.
People are just getting there, just
Okay.
going to the bus.
Okay.
Was there anything common about the people on the bus?
No, they were really different.
Other than everybody was very different. The thing I will say is that everybody is a caricature of a stereotype of people. So he is describing particular kinds of people and not a specific person. Let me. I'll read a passage here from page 2 for us. I, the narrator, was now next to a very short man with a scowl who glanced at me with an expression of extreme disfavor and observed rather unnecessarily loudly to the man beyond him. This sort of thing really makes one think twice about going at all. What sort of thing? Growled the other big, beefy person. Well, said the short man, this is hardly the sort of society I'm used to, as a matter of fact. Huh? As the big man then added with a glance at me, don't you stand any sauce of him, mister. You're not afraid of him, are you? Then seeing I made no move, he rounded suddenly on the short man and said, not good enough for you, are we? I don't like your lip. Next moment, he had fetched the short man on one side of the face and sent him sprawling into the gutter. Let him lay, said the big man with no one in particular. I'm a plain man, and that's what I am. I've got my rights same as anyone else, see? As the short man showed no disposition to rejoin the group and soon began limping away, I closed up rather cautiously behind the big man and congratulated myself on having gained yet another step. So he's not describing people specifically, he's categories of people. There was a short guy who was just really upset, and this just isn't how things should do. I relate to that short man. Like when you go to something and they're like, man, this is so disorganized on how, where are you supposed to go? What, why are we just standing in this line? Do they not know how much time we're wasting with this or that? And then there's the big man who's, he just acts first and doesn't really care. So there's all kinds of people like this who are caricatures of humanity, and that's what Lewis is doing as he's setting the stage of some of these people. Now, spoiler, the big man is one of the people that we will see later in the book and interactions with other characters in that. So some of the people he's describing here, he's setting up for us to get a glimpse of them, of who they are, or what kind of person they're describing, for us to understand some of the events that will happen later. So as you read this or you reread this, you'll pay attention to the people he interacts with while he's in line, and especially when he's on the bus for that. But one of the things that I noted was in the book, he's talking to some people on the bus, and apparently this city is so big because you can build a house in no time at all, but it's so big because no one likes their neighbors. They build a house, and invariably somebody on the block or the neighborhood annoys them. And so they just go, it's so easy to build a house, you just go to the next street and build another house. And some people have done this, like someone had, the person he was talking to knew someone who went to go and see how far it was and made it out to see Napoleon's house. That there were some historical figures there, but there would be no way for him to be able to get back in time because it would be like millions of miles to walk back to the bus. And that's something pretty important to kind of capture here, that imagery of just how big it was, because of how easy it was to create your own space in this environment. All right. So the giveaway of this is that this gray city is hell. Okay. How does that differ, Lewis's vision of hell, differ from what might be in your heads of what hell is?
Well, it kind of kills the fire and brimstone idea.
All right. So what do we picture as hell?
Unhappiness.
Unhappiness. Okay. A place of unhappiness, or is hell a place?
I don't know.
All right. Good answer, because
Away from God.
it's away from God.
It's across the river.
It's across a river, or it's under a cliff in this one. Unhappiness, away from God. What else? Fire and brimstone. Why do we think of that?
Because it's characterized that way.
It's character. Most famously in Dante's Inferno, this image of, well, and also other mythologies, Greek mythology, of the underworld. Like it's Hades in Greek mythology, but the Romans and Latin pantheon, they just took Greek mythology, the Greek pantheon, and just renamed them Latin names and tweaked it a little bit. It was cut and paste. Vulcan was the lord of the underworld because that was volcanoes, lava, burning heat. Underneath the earth was this fiery place.
And that's true.
It is. Underneath the crust of this planet is very hot.
From what he's describing, there's an awful lot of anger and depression.
It's a place full of anger, depression. Yeah. So we get these, we have, and we still to this day, we picture hell most often as a fiery, tormenty place, where we even hear that in scripture, right? in the Gospels they mention this Sheol, or they will be cast away into the lake of eternal fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Right? It's not isn't pictured as a pleasant place.
It's a place separate for God as well.
Right.
God is not there.
God is not there. Yep. So Lewis is painting a picture of hell here for us in this opening chapters of this book, that kind of goes against some of our initial, and there'll be a character who will say, well, this really kind of throws a wrench in the whole fiery furnace kind of imagery of hell, that instead of being a place of fire and pain and most of those, like Dante's Inferno hell is all about what? What?
Are there levels?
There's levels, but it's all about punishment and pain, right? And this just kind of looks like it looks like a normal town. It looks like a normal place in some sense, right? So this isn't some bizarre. I mean, it is bizarre, but it's recognizable.
In the world.
Right. Except for the perpetual twilight, that perpetual in-betweenness of the light, of the sun always being, that he says that potential for sunrise to come. There's, it could be any place. It could be Los Angeles. It could be London. It could be anywhere. It's recognizable to us. There's houses, there's streets, there's neighborhoods, there's buses, or a bus for us. What do you make of hell being so familiar?
Say that again, please.
What would you what do you make of, or how, if you stop and think about that, what comes to mind if hell is a recognizable or familiar place? What might be Lewis trying to tell us?
We're pretty close.
We're pretty close.
It's all around us.
Mm-hmm. Hell is all around us. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. I also said one of the premises of Lewis writing this book was to illustrate the separateness of, to emphasize just how other God is from us. Okay? So you might be thinking, Pastor Mark, why would he then, if he wants to illustrate how separate God is from us, how different God is from us, why would he make hell be a place that we would easily recognize? So familiar and perhaps even comfortable.
To suggest we ought to open our eyes.
Yeah? To pay more attention to what's going on.
Well, sometimes, we find ourselves in hell.
How so?
Well, it's of our choosing to stay in hell, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
instead of making alternate choices. Sometimes you create your own hell.
You've read more of the book.
No,
No.
I haven't.
Good.
People in
So what-
addiction,
what's that?
I mean, there's all different issues,
Yeah,
but addiction,
right.
say addiction, that's a hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are in, they may wanna try to get out, and some people can't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You kind of get the feeling the hell he is describing, with a bit of exaggeration, is the world we live in. I think that was.
But yeah. Yeah. Doesn't have to be place of fire. Doesn't have to be, under the ground, lake of fire. This completely bizarre place with a red devil with a tail and horns poking at you with a pointy stick.
Not kind to each other. I mean, that one guy pushing that one
Yeah.
guy out.
Yeah.
I think of separateness. You know, that you're separate from other people, there's no relationships.
So, that was gonna be my next. What do you observe?
So would that mean there's no love there?
I would say no.
Say no, there is?
There is some love there. What did you just say?
Of self.
Of self. The only love that is present in the Grace City is love of self.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. There is, if we, go back and reread or read the first few chapters on the Grace City, and you will see every interaction, every person, save for the narrator a little bit, but you even hear it in the narrator when he was like, oh, I'm moving, I'm getting closer.
Yeah.
Happy that someone has left, someone's been hit and struck and cast out. That every interaction is very selfish. Is self, the person is acting only for themselves, thinking only of themselves. That description that you'll find of you can easily build a house, takes no time at all, but invariably your neighbor is going to annoy you, so you just go, and that's why everyone is fleeing everyone. And the storyline of this guy going out to try to find Napoleon's house is that they just keep moving further and further and further and further away because they just can't stand being around anybody else. I mean, a fight erupts on the bus for that reason. Someone they don't like this or that, or they said this wrong thing and blah, 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 and they get all mad and grumpy and upset and do something. Why, this isn't worth it. The couple, couple, one will leave, the other one's glad the other one actually left, and now this and that.
Was it identified why people wanted to go to see the house of Napoleon of all people?
It just thought he was curious.
Pardon?
He was curious, wanted to know what that kind of person would be. There wasn't a purpose to it, just wanted to see it. And as the bus travels, starts leaving the city and they're starting to fly, going up to this top of this cliff, he can see lights of houses going on beyond the horizon, on and on and on. So, yeah, we get this sense that this Grace City really is a bizarre other place, in the sense that, some people, the people are on the bus just because it was there. Some people don't have a true reason for the bus. They're not, some people are like, yeah, I got to get out of this place. I've been waiting for this bus for a while, and this or that, and or just seemed like the thing to do. It was here, and they were going to take it this time.
When you describe the bus, of course it would be interesting in something new and different, the colors and the light.
Yep. The bus didn't belong there. Yeah. Didn't fit in. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe the bus is simply a nature of change, and wherever you go, wherever it changes you, you're in the same place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Something that makes a vehicle that gets you to a new experience. Absolutely. The bus is a bus that is going to take you to a place that you have to make a choice. Spoiler. The bus, you have to make a choice. The bus gets up to this top of the cliff, and some people choose to get off the bus. Some people don't.
So is the cliff the end? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the cliff is above the Grace City, but that's where the bus stops, is on this cliff. Top of this cliff, it opens up into a big, huge green pasture, rolling hills, all leading up to what appears to be a very bright mountain in the center of it, but you get the sense that this is bigger than anything that you're only catching a glimpse of it. And you can't really see the whole mountain because of, it's beyond the clouds.
Are the people pulled towards that?
Yes and no.
Oh, some are, some aren't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, that's early on, he's setting up, there's a very big difference between this gray, dark, really unpleasant thing. So some of the things that people said, what things that you think of hell is unhappiness. You don't find a happy person down there, right? None of the people, when you read these interactions, none of them are happy. They all have got something that is irritating them, that they're not happy with. You said depression,
Yep.
darkness. Yeah. Some of them are very, very depressed, but they're all selfish and self-centered, focused on themselves and only themselves. And that's an imagery of when you know a very self-centered person. In fact, we have narcissism, but it's a pathology that we describe of you're so focused on yourself. You are the most important and singular person that other people really bother you. Right? If you have narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, it's hard to be around other people because they're just so wrong. They annoy you so much. And they don't recognize how meaningful and important and significant you are. It's a mental health, condition, disorder.
You're describing a good portion of mankind.
That's my question. Do we learn more about the driver that's full of light?
It's full of what?
Light.
The driver himself seemed full of light, and he used only one hand to drive. I don't, for the people who haven't read it, just because it's funny, because I listen, I miss this part, but the light, it's the bus that says it was a wonderful vehicle blazing with golden light, heraldically colored, and then the driver, golden light. So.
We'll learn more about the driver is not of the Gray City. Okay.
Well, light.
Right. So we'll learn more about why the driver was the way the driver was, why the bus is so bright and different, compared to the Gray City as we explore that. I'll just leave it there. We'll learn more, and some of it you might have to just then infer of that. So we begin to see that this idea of hell, we're just going to come out and say that he doesn't reveal it until a few chapters in that this would be the Gray City would be considered hell. And they're on the very foothills of heaven. They're not in heaven yet, but they're just on the border of heaven.
So they're trying to leave by going in the bus. They're trying to leave being in heaven or in hell.
Yes and no.
That covers it.
Yeah, they got on the bus. So they departed, and now they're going to have an experience outside of the Gray City. They're going to have an experience outside of hell, of this. We won't get into what that experience is like until next week. But we begin to see a defining characteristic of how Lewis is understanding hell. How do we think you end up in hell? What have we been taught?
By not making a choice.
What choice?
I'm not choosing a personal relationship with Christ.
Okay.
That's one,
Right. How do you end up in hell?
By not caring
For not caring? Okay, yeah. All right. See, I grew up, and all of you grew up in America, for the most part. I think I don't have anybody who's an immigrant, but in America, our American theology and Christianity has been shaped by the great revivals. Jonathan Edwards, sinners in the hands of a vengeful God, right? If you don't, and I grew up hearing and seeing the little tracts that people put onto windowsills that if you don't say this prayer based on these 3 different passages in Romans or this or that, if you don't accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you are going to hell. And you don't want that. Okay? I grew up in Protestant Christianity, and over and over again, it was if you, as a guy, you look at a girl lustfully, you're sinning. Now, if you look at your older brother's Playboy, you're going to hell. If you don't do the right things and you do the wrong things, you're what? Going to hell. So for me, and for so many, dare say most people, the understanding of heaven and hell is if you do bad things, you go to hell and you get punished for it. And if you do good things, if you're a good person, you get a reward and you go to heaven. And the heaven picture that I was painted with, the hell picture was fire, brimstone, the devil, and pointing and eternal torture, and it really sounds scary and bad, and I don't like pain, and I don't want to be in trouble, so I don't want to do that. But heaven, the picture painted for us quite often is people rolling around on clouds, sitting on clouds, playing a harp in a white robe with wings. And the sunlight in the background.
Flowers.
Maybe flowers, but I also grew up thinking, that doesn't look fun. As a young.
Sing the same song over and over.
And you'll worship God eternally. And I remember being told that in Sunday school class at like when I was 9, 10 years old, and I was like, church goes on too long, 1 hour on Sunday morning. So I grew up in this moment of thinking, hell sounded really bad, but heaven didn't sound all that good. for a young boy. It must have sounded really good for somebody else, but for a young boy that had ADD, and that didn't sound fun or interesting. And hell, I got this impression that hell was this place to be punished for all the bad things that you did. And it really was going to be a suck, and you should be afraid to go there. That message was so much so that, for me, like many people, I doubted that I was going to go to heaven because I was most certainly not good enough, or I kept doing things that I knew I shouldn't do, and that I didn't want to do. There's a whole guy in Bible who writes this. I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do, and on, and it's horrible. I didn't read the next part that said, "But His grace is sufficient for me." I didn't own that. I just was like, I'm just a wretched person too, just like Paul, because I'm not going to be good enough for heaven. I'm going to be bad in. I'm going to go to the horrible place in hell.
So,
What? No. No.
I think you're a man of faith.
I am a Methodist for this reason. I know Christ's grace is sufficient for me. Does the Gray City sound like a place of fear?
So far, doesn't it?
Fear of being in.
Sitting here right now, you would say, I don't want to go there. Good. But were the people there afraid of the Gray City? Ask yourself as you read that, reread that, were they afraid there? No. No. Comfortable.
Say that again?
The people there almost seemed comfortable. They could just leave their house, go build a house where the annoying neighbor wasn't, until there was another annoying neighbor. And then you could go and build another house. Nothing pushed you, disrupt you. Nothing forced or changed your personal, your selfish desires or thoughts. If someone pushed you or confronted you on that, you were just like the big man, just like that point, he could slap the guy across the face and knock him away, and there was no
Nobody
consequence for
stepped
that.
in to help the guy or anything. It
No.
sounded like they just all looked and was like, no one
Like
to help.
Like I said, there's going to be a scuffle. If you haven't read it yet or heard it yet, there's going to be a scuffle on the bus because of seatings or what have you. Someone gets shot, but then suddenly there's no real consequences in the Gray City.
Don't you get the feeling that he's trying to leave a message that hell is a place of your own choosing?
That is exactly the place that I'm leading us to. Okay? And I'm going to end us with that thought of, yes, hell is the choice you make it. Okay? It is all those things that we described, other than we don't know. But we know that it's a place separate from God. And it's a place that we create on our own. Okay? There's no mention, and in fact, when you start reading some of the other characters and encounters outside of the Gray City, you get to see that it's not a person from the Gray City is there, and he interacts with another person, and as you read, who's not from the Gray City, and as you read that interaction, you realize that the person who's not in the Gray City is a murderer.
I don't understand what you just said.
So there's a person in the Gray City who gets on the bus, goes up, takes the bus ride. He interacts with somebody who's not from the Gray City that comes who's in that other place. And as they have a dialogue, as we get to hear it, it's revealed the person who's in the other place, heaven, is a murderer. Okay? So it's not, Lewis is making this line of hell is not just a place that you go to because of a summation of things that you did or didn't do, but of choice. Okay? That's going to get that idea of hell being our choice is going to get reinforced as you go along, as you see choices being made throughout the rest of the book. But here's what I want to end on for us here today, is talking about the imagery of hell being this burning place of punishment and torture, like we get from Dante's Inferno, that we get a picture of. Yes, the Gospels and the Bible describes this as the place that people will be cast away from, cast out of the presence of God, where there will be into the lake of eternal flames, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That reinforces the idea of what Dante describes as of hell for us, of punishment and pain. One of my seminary professors, when talking theology and doctrine and so on, talking about heaven and hell, and being like, we don't know. Here's our best guess. And, the Bible really doesn't spell it out for us. Lots of images, but doesn't really spell either one out for us. We've got actually better images of what heaven will be like, is the key word. It will be like this. So that we can get some of that sense of that. But Professor's like, what if hell was a place if you couldn't choose anything other than yourself? How incredibly painful would it be to be in the presence of someone so much better and significant and complete and holy than you? And you couldn't deny it. That would be torture, wouldn't it? If you put two narcissistic people in a room, they don't like each other. They don't like anybody, but they really don't like each other. Now, that is not to say that God is narcissistic, but you put someone into the presence of God who is so complete and real and significant, and all you can think about is yourself, that's going to be really painful. I mean, the Bible tells us we can't hear the voice of God without it utterly destroying us. Moses can't look on the face of God without being destroyed. He has to hide behind a rock so that God can pass by. And just that mere passing by of God makes Moses glow so much so. What? The trucker of the bus, yeah. Makes Moses glow so much that when he comes down the mountain with the tablets, the people are like, ah! Right? That's Lewis's inspiration of this. The professor was saying, what if hell wasn't about punishment, but God's last accepting of your choice?
Say it again.
Not about punishment, but God accepting your choice. Okay. If you can only choose yourself, here you go. I won't be there. So which is exactly what Lewis is writing here. So as you reread those first few chapters, 3-4 chapters of the Gray City, keep some of those things, the things that we've mentioned here. Watch out for how the people are choosing themselves. They're focused on themselves. Another understanding of this is sin is not just a list of particular actions or inactions. Sin is a bending in upon ourselves so that we can only see and experience ourselves and not others around us and the world around us. We don't see the needs of others. We can't love and be in relationship with others. All we are in relationship is with ourselves. So anything can be sin, and some things that is sin for John or for me is not a sin for you all. Addiction. Great, that's idolatry. And you're trapped, and you're so trapped in it, you're so bent into it. But that whatever you're addicted to is a sin for you because it bends you into yourself. But, person sitting next to you, for an alcoholic, alcohol is sin. But the person sitting next to you, no, it's not. It changes our, as we explore and think about what the Gray City represents, it changes our understandings of some of the things about Christianity that we might just think are real or true, that shifts some of the things of us. God isn't vengeful. God isn't, punishing. That last act of all you can do is choose yourself. you're really going to be uncomfortable here. Because you're going to have to pay attention to me. So I'm going to give you a place that I'm not.